Hey guys, this is Ash and you're watching WriterGAsh. So for today's video, I wanted to do a February wrap up. I know we're like a little way into March and I didn't film it in February, but I decided I'm gonna try doing it every month. So without further ado, let's get into this video. If you've ever watched any of my videos, you know how much I love Avatar. And in February, we got Silver Flames. And if you watch my last month's wrap up, you also saw that I did a reread of Avatar. I did my A Court of Frost and Starlight reread in February, so that was my first book of this month. It is a novella, so it definitely was not the same experience as the rest of the Avatar series, but it still like connected the threads between Avatar and the spin-offs, like Silver Flame. And I really enjoyed it more the second time I noticed all the hints and possible plot lines that came up in this book, and it really got me in the feels for Akosef. And it is a novella, and it reads more like a Christmas special or a holiday special, which was a nice break. And I did enjoy it, and I just love Sarah J. Maas's writing, so this book was just perfect. It definitely was not a 5 star like the other Avatar books. It was like a 3.54 stars for me, but it was still a great book. The next book this month was Again But Better by Christine Riccio. I've been watching Christine's videos on YouTube since I got on BookTube, and I've loved following her reading journey. And when she decided to come out with this book, I meant to pick it up, but I hadn't because I was one in a reading slump, and there were like very specific types of books I was reading. And at that point, I was very much into just like romantic suspenses, and that was all I was reading. I was reading the In Death series. Like I got to like 40 or something. I have not picked it back up. I should, but you know, when you read the same thing over and over again, it gets a little puts you in a reading slump. But I hadn't gotten to this book, and then I saw it on Book Outlet, and I picked it up. It was a great read. It was like a 4 stars for me, and the first half was just like it's a study abroad romance ish, and this girl gets a chance to restart her life and do things she did wrong right the second time around when she moves halfway across the world. And as an international student, there were some things that I kind of related with, but some things felt completely different. Like, this isn't much of a spoiler, it's like all the characters basically, but Shane's friends were all Americans from, I think, the same university, even. And that's just not how I thought study abroad even worked. Like, I'm an international student in the US, and I have friends who are from different countries, not just from my home country, but from around the world, and also from like the US. And the reason I came to study in the US, other than the program, was the cultural exchange. And it just seems pointless to go to a different country to study if you're not going to immerse yourself in their culture. And I just kind of wish they did that. Yes, they traveled and they took advantage of that aspect, which, if you're studying abroad, do it. If you can, do it. Because, like, who knows if you'll ever come back to that country. Go see what you can while you're there. But it was just like, it fell short on that aspect a little bit. But this book reminded me of Anna and the French Kiss, which was my first, like, I read Fangirl first, but like, this was my favorite contemporary back when I was a teenager. And it like took me back to that phase of my life where I was in love with Etienne St. Clair, and kind of makes me want to read that book again. Anyway, moving on to the next book I read. I read this book after reading like so many Akasif like fan fictions because I just was in the Akatar mindset, but I decided I needed to read a real book. Fan fiction's great and all, but like I needed to read something to get my mind off the spiral I was in with Akasif. And then after this, Akasif came out, and fantastic. In the middle, I will say I read like the first 5 chapters of Ember in the Ashes. Loved it, but I'm saving it for when I could actually read the whole series. I picked it up the day before Axif came out because I went to Barnes and Noble and bought the book. Anyway, back to it. Axif was just the highlight of my month. It just encompassed me completely. It took me like 2 weeks to get over it, and I still like sometimes feel like just reading some of the scenes again and again. That's a 5 star. The emotional journey it took me on, the healing, the it's a character driven book. There is a plot, there is some things that happen, but it first and foremost is about character development. And it might be hard for you to get through if you don't like character focused books as much, but it is worth it. The emotions you feel in this book. Yes, it is a bit more adult, it's spicier, smuttier, but that wasn't the highlight of this book for me. It was the healing, personally. I do have a book talk, a spoiler filled book talk on this book. I'm linking it up there. Pick it up. Fantastic book. Please just give it a shot if you like. And if you haven't read Akatar, give that a shot. It is just amazing world building. She creates such an intricate world filled with varying cultures. It just like it's not our world, and it's fantastic because it's just so detailed. It feels realistic, like you could imagine being there, kind of realistic. It's fantastic. So after my like couple of weeks of reading slump, well, it wasn't that long, it was just 4 days or 2 days after I finished Akasif, but I kept like reading it over and over again and stopped myself and read another book trying to get out of the slump. I read The Wedding Party, the third book in the Wedding Date series by Jasmine Gilroy. I love Jasmine Gilroy's work. I read the first 2 books quite a while back, and I picked this one up because I'd been meaning to read this for a while, and I knew I loved the characters she created and the like settings. The characters in her book are definitely older than what I usually read. They're in their 30s, and for some reason, I've been enjoying those books a lot more. Like a lot of the contemporaries I read nowadays have older characters. They're in their mid 30s or like even 40s sometimes. I think that's the oldest I can read because I can't ever relate to, I can't yet relate to characters older than that. And like their career focus in that age range is just something I really enjoy. Like she writes characters who are driven, and like I love a female character who like loves her career, who is so focused on everything that she's doing, who enjoys what she's doing. And Jasmine Gilroy gives me that every time. So I have enjoyed what I have read from her so far. And I know she has a book coming out this year, so I'm looking forward to that. I did read A Party of Two, the 5th book in this series. I skipped the 4th again because it was a much older character, and I didn't want to read that. I might read it when I'm older, maybe, but for me, it's just really hard to relate to a character that much older than me. And I just wanted like a fun read, and I'm sure that was a fun read too. But I'm 21, and I just didn't think reading about a 50-year-old character. She has to be older because her daughter is the one who the wedding party is about, and she's in her 30s. So, a much older character. I didn't know how I was gonna feel reading that, how well I would relate. I probably would have loved it if I gave it a shot, but I just wanted to read the next one because it was about the first book's protagonist's sister, who I loved, and she was this badass lawyer. I just wanted to get to that part. So I skipped on to Party of Two, which was a fantastic book. And that was the last book I read this month before going back to Akasif and rereading and rereading. I definitely went through so many like spot rereads of Akasif this month, and Akasif was the highlight of my month. So that is my wrap up for this month, and I read a grand total of 5 books. It's not my highest, but it was still a good reading month for everything that Akasif, like with Akasif occupying my mind all the time. I do plan on reading Chain of Gold and Chain of Iron next month. I have read Chain of Gold before, but I want to do a reread in anticipation of Chain of Iron. Well, in March. It's already next month. I have my book coming from Waterstones, so it's gonna take a while. So I'm just waiting for that, like for it to get in the country to start reading Chain of Gold because it's still not in the U.S. Like it's been shipped, but it's not here yet. So I'm just waiting on that. I have thankfully not seen any spoilers for Chain of Iron, so I am kind of scared because Cassandra Clare usually has these horrifying second books. If you've read any of her books, you know, if you read The Dark Artifices, you know how that second book ended. And if she does that again, I don't know how I am going to cope because I did not cope well with Lord of Shadow. It put me in months of a reading slump. It was so emotionally scarring that I didn't pick up Queen of Air and Darkness for over a year. Anyway, that's the end of this video, and yeah, I will see you guys later.